a lot of farmers don't have succession plans, and I think it's something like 40% of farmers or Canadian farmers are set to retire within the next 9 years, and that's going to leave a huge gap in our food system. A member of a biker gang come up to us like the first year we were farming, and he's like, "You grow hot peppers?" We had zero farming experience. We did a little bit of gardening together, which we really enjoyed. But what started kind of this was COVID and going to the grocery store, and there was no food on the shelves, and all the produce sucked, and it made you really worry about where your food was coming from.
The common theme in agriculture across North America and potentially the world over the past 5 to 10 years has been that it's just not worth it. Farmers' kids just don't want to take over the family farm because it's not worth taking over. They saw how much mom and dad stressed over it, and they don't want to. It doesn't pay the bills anymore. So more and more people are looking towards being better stewards of the land and how they can actually make money at farming. So leaning towards things like regenerative agriculture and market gardening, like we're doing here, trying to make a little bit of money rather than monoculture crops. And other farmers like Sara at Homemaker Farms, who we talked to last year, are doing just that. They're trying to pay their bills off of a market garden. So here's a conversation I had last year with Sara at her farm about her market garden and what it's like being a new entrant farmer.
Hi, my name's Sara from Homemaker Farms. We operate on a 7-acre farm, and we farm intensively on 1 acre with 144 feet of high tunnel. We have a small CSA program and a 7-day-a-week farm stand.
Nailed it. That was perfect.
Awesome.
You cussed at the beginning, but it's
Sorry,
fine.
you can cut it out.
Yeah, I don't care.
I don't know how long this has been running, but I've been running around swearing, so.
Yeah, that's fine. I took the headphones off because I was like, I don't want to hear you.
Oh, you could hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Fuck.
I know, you went to the bathroom with it.
No, I didn't. I took it off.
Did you? Okay.
I did, twice.
I knew you had mentioned it after, and I was like, I'm glad I didn't have the headphones on.
No, I took it
because
off.
I think we have a very similar story. You've been able to get a little further than we have with a little bit more of investments. We tried to go the route of trying to do it as cheaply as possible and do like more homestead stuff. And then it's only the last year that we've really started to realize, oh, we could do this and make money at it. But I think that was you guys from the get-go. So why don't you tell me what your story was? What led you into farming?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It happened really fast. We started farming in 2022. I was working in veterinary medicine. I had burnt myself out. I got compassion fatigue. Funny that I went into farming, but anyways. And we were looking at buying farmland in PEI where we were living at the time, and we really couldn't afford it. So Stephen's family lives across the road from us, and they told us, hey, there's this little farm for sale. Why don't you guys check it out? I said, no way. Like, I love PEI. I don't want to move to New Brunswick, even though your whole family's from here. We came, we saw the property in the middle of winter. We fell in love. And like, we had been looking for farm property for maybe 2-3 months. And within 4 months, we had purchased a farm and we're packing up our bags and starting farming. We had zero farming experience. We did a little bit of gardening together, which we really enjoyed. But what started kind of this was COVID and going to the grocery store, and there was no food on the shelves, and all the produce sucked, and it made you really worry about where your food was coming from and was it accessible. We couldn't get it at the time, and it wasn't good quality produce, and it was winter and we didn't have access to grow our own food at the time. We were living in a small apartment. So we kind of lost our mind and quit our jobs and started farming, and we haven't looked back. And I think it's probably for the best that we had no experience, because if I would have known what I would have known now, I might have been a little bit reserved, but we just jumped in face first, and it kind of all just fell together properly somehow.
Do you find your background in veterinary medicine has really helped? Like, you've got chickens and you've talked about getting into other animals.
Yes, definitely. Also just for the chaos. I worked as a server bartender before I was in veterinary medicine. So just being able to like think on your feet really quick, roll with the punches. You got to do what you got to do, and hard work, obviously, both of those careers. So farming kind of just fell into it perfectly.
And it's worked so far.
So far, I mean, we're not dead yet, and the farm was on fire once. But besides that, there's been no other fires, so we're good to go.
So how do you make it work? Like, do you do most of the farming during the day and Stephen has a day job, or how does that work out?
Yeah, so originally Steve and I started the farm together. Stephen kind of decided after a year of farming, it wasn't quite his cup of tea. Okay. To be fair, he's allergic to everything under the sun, poor thing. And I just love being outdoors. That's one of my favorite things. So he decided to go back to work full time to kind of help fund the farm, because we had enough pennies where we were like just scraping by. I also work off farm all year round part time, and he comes and he helps at night and on the weekends. But we have friends and family that really help, and people from the community that come and help us a lot. So we've been very fortunate this year that our workload isn't as crazy as it usually is, because he works a crazy amount off farm too. But you know, farming's a lifestyle. It's not just a career. So he comes home and there's, chickens to feed, things to water, something broke, there's a storm, we have to fix something. Like, there's just always something, but we enjoy what we do for a living, so it's nice.
Did the property start, like, obviously this barn wasn't something that you guys erected, but what was on the property when you guys moved in?
So the house, the barn, the little red shed over there. Oh, sorry, I just see a customer here. Maybe she'll see us over here. Oh, sorry. Not everybody gets the self-serve farm stand thing. Well, she'll wander over, sorry. So the house was here, the little shed was here, and the barn was here. The family has been farming on this land for hundreds of years. The house is over 100 years old, the barn's over 100 years old. And when we first started, we had two 20 by 36 foot polytunnels that we had purchased from a family member for a really good price, tore them down, put them together. And now in our second year, we have 144 feet of high tunnel plus an extra 36-foot nursery. We have a walking cooler now. We have the full acre fenced in, and then hopefully next year we'll have a wash and pack station, and fingers crossed, a geothermal greenhouse.
That's a lot to be able to commit to.
Yeah. There's no going back now. It's too late. So.
Well, unfortunately, I think what a lot of people, especially like generational farmers, is that they've been doing it forever, and then the kids see that their dad or their mom has been so burnt out for so many years, and they don't want to get into it. They don't want to do it. So you guys are the opposite. You've found a farm that you've wanted to do this, and you found a passion you want to try out and see if it's viable.
Yeah, exactly. And I could definitely see why so many people, like farmers had 14 kids back in the day. I definitely joke all the time, before we started a farm, we should have popped out 14 kids, but it's a little late now. We got the neighbors' kids. That's good enough for us. And a lot of farmers don't have succession plans. And I think it's something like 40% of farmers, or Canadian farmers, are set to retire within the next 9 years. And that's going to leave a huge, huge gap in our food system. I think a lot of people are waking up to it. I see a lot of new farming entrants, or people that are farm curious. So hopefully there'll be enough people in the coming years to bridge that gap. And I think when it comes to farming, like, it is a profession that has a high rate of suicide. It has a high burnout rate as well. I think there needs to be a balance, because I definitely burnt myself out the first couple seasons we were here. And this year I'm kind of taking a step back and realizing you can't control everything. You can't control the weather. You can't control natural disasters. You can't control what happens in your personal life. You just kind of have to roll with the punches. Some days, some years something good happens and your crop turns out. The next year that crop doesn't do well. It's just what you got to do. And I think there are resources for farmers struggling with mental health. But I think you have to build a farm that's sustainable for you. Like, it's just me 99% of the time. So I have to make sure that what I'm doing, I can sustain myself. So investing in tools, investing in buildings, like, just making sure that this is something I can do long term, as well as looking after my body. Like, I talked to Nicole about using the proper tools, and our little 16-year-old employee, where nothing hurts when you bend over, but for me it hurts if I do something wrong the next day, you know? So just teaching yourself how to work with your body and work with the land and not burn yourself out.
How have you found where to invest that money, like to buy high tunnels and to buy certain things, but then you have like a 40-year-old ATV with no brakes? And is it just things that you find is, okay, this has been bugging me long enough, we need to put an investment in that, or is there a specific plan that you have moving forward?
So the four-wheeler was $500, and that's all we had to invest in the four-wheeler. So it's really, we make a little bit of money, and whatever we have, we look for a good deal or something that we're very fixer-ups. Thankfully, Steven's a pretty great mechanic. My brother's a great mechanic, so we can buy fixer-upper projects. But the walking cooler, if you're starting a market garden, I 100% recommend it, because we lose a lot less produce than we would normally. We can sit on produce for longer. It extends our growing season, having some cold storage crops in there as well. The high tunnels, because we have a really short growing season in New Brunswick, it was kind of like a no-brainer. A heated greenhouse would be more than ideal, but it's very, very expensive. It's your best return on investment, but when you're starting out, you don't have those funds. Like, where do you get that money from, right? So it's basically whatever I've noticed that, okay, I can't do this any longer. This is not conducive. Like our lettuce, for example, I say I hate growing lettuce, but it's a beautiful crop. People love it. It's a great seller. It's really quick to turn over. But for me, I'm not making as much money on that lettuce because I don't have the proper setup. Like, I don't have a wash and pack station. So there's like, I'm just using my salad spinner and I'm spinning everybody's lettuce for the market. I'm doing like, 20 plus bags. So next year, that's what we're going to invest in. And you learn really, really quickly. And I mean, if you're on the Market Gardener community group on Facebook, they have like the best list of tools you should invest in right off the hop. Definitely a seeder is a great one too, but you'll kind of figure out, and you can build a lot of things yourself too. This is just a one-man show, so I have to do what I have to do, and sometimes you have to spend money, which is awful, but
It's something that we found out too, that having to, well, yeah, we hate spending money as well, but having to figure it out as you go along, because everybody's property is different. Everybody,
Yeah.
what they're growing, the way they grow is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So some people and some farms that we go to, they invent tools that like, okay,
Yeah.
here's where this weeder came from because we didn't know how to get in between the rows. And so it's cool. I went to a farm recently that McCain's is operating, and they're running tractors on tracks so they can reduce soil compaction. And so there's
Nice.
farms that are doing really impressive things. But you mentioned the quality of food at the grocery stores. What's the difference between what you're growing or what I'm able to grow versus what you're finding at the grocery store?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. And really, I mean, the food is going from our fields to the cold storage, or sometimes not even to the cold storage, directly to our farm stand. It's like 400 feet. Our produce is vine ripened. We don't spray with anything. So we try to use heirloom seeds when we can. So that's a higher nutritional content. Same thing with vine ripened. You're getting a better flavor profile and better nutrients. It's just fresher. And you know, our stuff you get from the grocery store, it's picked when it's not ripe. It's ripened in transport. There's no flavor to it. There's no nutritional content. It doesn't get any fresher than buying it straight from the farm, and you get to make that personal connection with the farmer. Like a lot of what we do in our community is saying, hey, what do you want to grow? So first I grew a lettuce that nobody liked. I switched to a different lettuce and people like that one, or it was a lettuce that didn't grow well in our conditions. So just communicating with folks and what they want and what's going to sell. Because I did start off our farm and I was like, oh, I want to excite people. I want every color of the rainbow beans on our plates to get people excited, but that's not what did well here. So you just kind of have to tailor it to what people want. And I have no problem selling my produce. I don't know if other producers feel the same, but like I just have the problem where I don't produce enough food for what people want. So I have complaints. Sometimes people come to the farm stand, they're like, oh, it's empty. I was like, yeah, like I picked it this morning or yesterday morning and it's sold out. Or sometimes someone comes to the farm stand, they're like, hey, I want a cabbage. I said, oh, I don't have any right now, but give me 2 seconds. I'll run to the field. I'll harvest you a cabbage. Do you want to come see where your food is grown? They walk up to the field. I teach them how to harvest
awesome.
it. Yeah, it's really cool. People get pumped about that. So it's just like connecting people to their food and getting them excited where their food comes from. They really do see the value in perhaps paying a little bit more for the produce, but also how much better it is for your health and the environment as well.
Was that something you had to find your market here for? Like, people don't like, even now, spending a lot of money or spending more money. So spending more money on food, did you have to find people that knew the benefit of market grown food as opposed to grocery store food? Or was there already people that were like, I'm ready, your parents live next door, and it's just like, okay, it makes sense, we're in the community and we can make this work?
Yeah, we've had a lot of friends and family who have been super supportive of our work, so we're really grateful for that. I think we're very lucky in New Brunswick because it's a very self-sustained community. Everyone's had a garden. So I have a lot of elderly people who are like, I'm not physically able to garden anymore, but I want a garden fresh cucumber because a grocery store cucumber is gross or a greenhouse cucumber is gross. We particularly have people that are looking for field-grown tomatoes, field-grown cucumbers, because there's a different flavor of it growing outside than a climate-controlled greenhouse, right? So we didn't have any trouble finding that market. It was kind of already here. And our farmers markets, there's not enough farmers. At our farmers markets, everyone pretty well sells out. There's a couple things left over at the end of the day, but it's not a big deal. We're very lucky. We have a great community. People see the value in it. And people also prefer the flavor. And they know when they go to the grocery store, like, their produce doesn't last, right? It rots in your fridge or it's already molded at the store. So what's the point of bringing that home? And they slap a 50% off sticker. You're welcome for buying our half-rotten produce. So
I've definitely noticed, especially in the last couple of years, the tastelessness of grocery store food.
yeah.
And I don't know if that's the result of it, like you said, being ripened on the way and transported miles and miles, or if it's something that we've, and I've said this before, that we've really started to focus on growing things fast and growing things big and pretty, as opposed to growing things that taste good or are nutritious for us. And I think that's hard to educate people on as well.
Yeah, people definitely are very disconnected from their food source. And that's the thing, is we have such a huge growing population. They want to make you think that there's food insecurity, but there's not. There's just not enough farmers and farmland available. It's not hard to grow food. I mean, obviously, you're a farmer. The weather, there's things, pests, diseases you can't control, but we grow things for the grocery store because it's pretty and because it has a long storage life. So they're hybridizing seeds, and that's where you're losing a lot of that flavor. Like an heirloom tomato takes longer to grow typically. It grows misshapen, so people don't think it's very pretty. So it's not very marketable, but it's probably the most delicious tomato you'll ever have, and it has way more flavor than a regular grocery store tomato. Like a grocery store tomato is a punishment to eat in the winter, personally. Like,
Do you feel like that's more consumer demand that has pushed that forward? Because I find like we have gotten used to, and I think it's probably our generation has just gotten used to, oh, I can get strawberries 12 months of the year, anytime in the grocery store. Whereas here, our strawberry season is 1 month and there's no strawberries. Like we're coming into blueberry season, so I'm ordering a ton for our freezer. But we have fresh produce in the grocery store all the time. There's always a produce section. Do you feel that it is people that really drove that forward, that were like, we want it now?
I think that's capitalism, honestly. Like, genuinely speaking, like, and again, I think I was pretty in touch with my food system because it's just something I was passionate about from the get-go. But we have people here, like you see my little watermelon sign in the front yard. It was May, I put it up, and someone came knocking on my door and said, "Hey, where's the watermelon?" I said, "It's May, my guy. Like, it's not ready yet." So people just don't understand, and it's a luxury to just go and get your food at the grocery store, because then it's not the time and the energy it takes to garden, because you're so busy working all day, you don't have time to garden and grow your own food. But if you know growing your own food, like it saves us money in the wintertime. We eat healthier, we're happier, it makes a lot of sense. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. I lost my
No, that's perfect. It's something that has been really hard to educate people, because we really do want things fast. We want things easy, and it's driven by society and our lifestyles that we don't have time to garden. And people years ago, our great-grandparents or our grandparents would have gardened. Everybody gardened. Everybody grew a ton of food, and because you didn't have access to it. And it's silly to think about now that they would have been gifted oranges at Christmas time. They would have been so excited about it. I've never gotten an orange for Christmas time because I can get an orange whenever I want. And so we are now, I think, realizing that, like you said, throughout COVID, with supply chain issues and with the quality of food dipping because of demand, we're seeing a lot more people that are having issues with food as well. I think there's a lot of medical issues that are popping up that are causative of our food system, whether it is the preservatives or the pesticides, I don't know. I think it's still yet to be determined. But our food system definitely needs a massive overhaul.
100%. I think people just need to be connected to their food system again. So that's why, like, our CSA program, we run a little bit more on an educational side of things. Like, we have a private Facebook group where we teach you how your food is grown. You know, if somebody is at the farm stand, I invite them to come up to the farm and show them where their food is grown. And I think people are kind of like taken aback by what they see, because they're like, this is just a garden on steroids. I'm like, it is, but this is, you know, small farms are really the way. I'm not knacking any larger farms, because there is a time and a place for everything in a way.
There's 8 billion people to feed.
Yeah, exactly. But if we had one small farmer for every 100 people, we could solve, you know, a lot of our environmental issues, a lot of our health issues, our financial issues, and our community. It's just a simple solution, but I think we're just so used to the way things are now. And like you said, like our grandparents' generation, food was in the garden, was in the pantry, was in the cold cellar. It was a luxury to get blueberry. You were excited for the seasons. You were excited for tomato season, blueberry season. But we've lost that. We're a little spoiled now, in a way, I guess.
Oh, definitely. You mentioned it a little bit, but can you explain for people who might not know, what is a CSA? What does it stand for, and what is it?
Yeah, so it's community supported agriculture. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it was started in the 70s by hippies. But so the reason that it's good for us is I don't have a lot of money as a small farmer. Maybe one day, hopefully, probably not, but that's fine. So what happens is folks in the beginning of the season, we market our CSA. They buy a share of our farm at the beginning of the season. So they're guaranteed crops from us. They kind of have to roll with the punches. Like if there's crop failure, they understand that. If we have a really abundant year for something, you get extra of this. So they purchase that at the beginning of the season, and that gives us money in our pocket so we can buy seeds, we can buy compost, like all our inputs we need for the season to get us going solid. So we've been running that since we started the farm for 2 years, and it was kind of a risk to get going because you're taking a lot of people's money. I had not grown on this like scale before. But we did it, and we had a really hard year, our first CSA year. It was last year when it was just raining cats and dogs. Everything got blight, everything rotted out. But we had people who really believed in us and our farm, and were okay with that. They still got lots of produce, you know. We had eggs and we had jam to supplement our CSA in the first year because I was worried I couldn't grow enough food. But this year's going really well. We have a lot of returning CSA members. I had some people who dropped because they said, I'm actually just going to grow a garden this year. And that just made me so happy to think that, yeah, okay, you're excited about your food. You're excited to grow your food. You're doing it yourself. Like if I go out of business because everyone has their own garden, like I'll just be tickled pink.
That's so interesting because, like you mentioned, capitalism is the opposite of that. You wouldn't want competition. You would,
No.
and I think we see that from large companies, right? The
Yeah.
billion-dollar companies that are suppressing and trying to stop people. I mean, they're trying to copyright the genome of different things, and so it just
Yeah.
makes it difficult for small farmers. So to hear that is encouraging because
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I want everybody. If more people grew food, absolutely,
Yeah.
because then we could solve a lot more problems together, and that's where community is really important.
Yeah, exactly. Like they said, this road used to just all be small farms, and one would be a dairy farmer, one would be a cattle farmer, one would be a pig farmer, one would be a vegetable producer, one would be blueberries, and you just bartered and trade, right? Like, because it is kind of unrealistic to do all of it on the farm. There is like a beautiful ecosystem you can create. You know, you use the manure, you rotationally graze. Like, there's benefits to having animals on your farm, but like, I couldn't throw dairy into this to sell commercially. I could maybe do it for us, but yeah, it takes a community to feed your community, right?
What have been some of those pieces of that ecosystem that you found either helped or just wasn't worth it? Like you mentioned dairy.
Yeah.
So what are some things that you would encourage other people to implement and some things you necessarily wouldn't?
I'm a big fan of chickens. I think every family should own backyard chickens because they're great composting systems. It's free breakfast. We say free very loosely. And their enjoyment, you're taking care of something and you have respect and you have understanding from where your food comes from and the energy. And I mean, it's great for kids too. And animals add a lot of fertility to our soil. So I don't have to buy, I still buy compost because we're still a new farm, but I don't have to buy expensive fertilizers and I can rotationally graze them and I don't have to worry about the weeds. We tried to do goats, but that was too much our first year and we didn't get the proper goats. We got free goats. I'll never take a free animal ever again. I learned my lesson.
I
on
still
that
have
one.
that
Don't do
problem.
it. Don't do it. It never turns out right. No.
What has been your, not necessarily your most lucrative crop, but your favorite one to be able to grow?
Definitely tomatoes, hot peppers, and our cantaloupe and our watermelon is the bomb.com. And people get really excited because they don't realize that you can grow those crops here. The cantaloupe, I can't even explain to you how delicious it is. It's nothing like the grocery store. The watermelons are beautiful and people get excited to know that we can grow it here. Like I go to the market, they're like, did you buy this from somewhere? I said, no, we grew this. This is Tobit grown watermelon. And it's delicious and it gets people excited. Everyone's talking about it this year. They're very excited for a watermelon crop.
Nicole was really excited because last year the year before, she had seed saved cantaloupe seeds from a grocery store melon, and everybody told her it's not going to work, you can't grow those, and she planted them, and she was so excited. She grew 2. I mean, they were like this big. They were tiny,
Yeah.
but she grew them, and she was so excited that like it was the sweetest and the most delicious melon. And it's those little successes that when you can grow something for the first time, we're still doing a lot of firsts on our own.
Yeah.
So to hear somebody that's relatively new at it being able to be successful in producing something is really encouraging.
Yeah.
So your hot peppers,
Yeah.
I love hot sauce. I love hot peppers. They have been kind of my baby section in the garden this year. What have been your best ones to grow and why? Is there a different? I don't know much about them. I just got all of the seeds I could and I planted them and I've been hoping for the best.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely expanded our hot pepper selection this year because people wanted it hotter. So last year we grew a couple different habaneros, jalapenos, obviously, and somebody wanted Hungarian hot wax peppers. So we grew those. They actually are like so abundant. I'm sure you could see in the greenhouse. Like they just grow, and they're delicious. I have a little bit of a hard time selling them because people don't know what they are. But once I tell them it's basically like a jalapeno, it's delicious. It's good for stuffing, a little bit hotter. We did buy a whole bunch of specialty hot peppers. A lot of them didn't take. They're really hard to germinate. They're really slow to germinate. So this is our first time growing like the Carolina Reapers, the Tombstone peppers. So they're going good for how short our season is. I think I might modify it next year just because it takes up a lot of space and I can get a good price for them, but not good enough for me to take up a whole polytunnel. So there's like mini tunnels you can get. So I'm going to try putting them in the field and see how they do. We also switched our early jalapenos to Monet peppers, which are basically a jalapeno, but they are a little bit more resilient to different changing temperatures like cold rain. They've been doing pretty good, but honestly, I'm fine with the early jalapenos. I found they did just as well and they were a little bit more abundant, but it's my first time growing them too, so I'm not 100% sure. We'll see.
Still figuring it out.
Yeah.
How do you process them? Do you make hot sauces or?
Hot hot sauces and hot pepper jelly. Again, some gentleman came up to us. We made red pepper jelly at the market because everybody loved it. And some guy came asking for hot pepper jelly, and I had never made it before, and I made it, and Steven and I just adore it. And we sell a whole ton of it. So it's our bell peppers and our hot peppers. Sometimes around Christmas, I run out of our bell peppers, but it's all made from stuff on the farm, and it's delicious, and people love it.
Do you find that there's a difference in what you sell from your market here versus farmers markets you go to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we have like the English community and the French community. I'm French. So like my cherry tomatoes here, they will not sell. They hardly sell at the farm stand, but the French, Grand Falls, absolutely loves the cherry tomatoes. They love lettuce and they love green onions. And my green onions here kind of sit for a while, and same thing with my lettuce. So it's really knowing your market. And I feel like I'm always just like missing the mark a little bit. Like our first year I grew Swiss chard, nobody wanted it. Last year I didn't grow Swiss chard, everybody wanted it. So this year I'm growing Swiss chard, and it's like meh. So it's like you're trying to get everything just right and trying to see what the community wants. And really it's talking to locals. And like we did a whole year at the farmers market where we just sold baked goods. So going from baked goods to vegetables was a little rough on our customers. And we just asked people like, what do you want to see? What do you want to eat? And then we were able to kind of tailor our growing season that way. And that made us a lot more successful than just me going in with what I thought would sell, because it's very different, apparently, unfortunately.
That's so interesting, because I find that a lot of farmers will carve out their niche. They'll find what either they're good at or they like to do. And we've noticed that with goats. Like there's surprisingly, you don't see it at the grocery store, but there's surprisingly a meat goat market in New Brunswick and in Canada that you really wouldn't have thought of. But we have friends that have meat goats that they sell to a very niche market of people that really want their goats. And it's something that we've been trying to figure out along the way, is what do we want to grow? Why do we want to grow it? And how can we be successful at it?
Yeah, it's a delicate dance, and there's no right or wrong answer. I think you just got to do it and see what works. And you're going to miss the mark, and you're going to do it the next year, and it's going to be the wrong thing, and you're just going to keep going. And eventually, I'm sure we're just in our second year, we'll find what works for us. But
what has been the hardest part so far?
Lack of resources, and being a first generation farmer and not knowing where to access those resources. Like, where do I find good quality compost? Where do I get packaging? Where do I get elastic bands for my produce? Where do I find the paper containers, the 3-liter ones? Like, you think you could just go on Amazon and order these things, but you can't. It's just a convoluted, long process. And not knowing how to do things. Like, I did the JM Market Gardener Masterclass, and I really think that's the only reason I was so successful so quickly, was it was kind of a streamlined process. But there's no book on how to farm, because there's no one size fits all for farming. Everybody farms differently. We go to the farmers market, and every single farmer has a different philosophy on how they farm. And that's also where you get your consumers, is you tell your story. You tell them why you're doing what you're doing and what you're doing, and people follow that and they like that. So everything's a first, everything's new, and every year's different. And I'm a type A personality, and I thought with proper planning, I could basically control everything. And I mean, there's stuff you can do, season extension technologies and things you could do to mitigate risk, but you can't argue with Mother Nature. She does what she does, and you do what you can do, and that's just the way it goes.
It's definitely something that you have to push forward no matter what, and kind of work your way at every little piece. Is it something that you've noticed is difficult financially for you guys? The CSA definitely helps, but is it something that I've met a number of farmers that like, hey, we're so far in the hole that if we have one bad year, we're done. We have to quit and go back to normal jobs.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely, definitely. So I funded a lot of our farm on grants because I had no money. We sold my car. I had a Subaru. I love my Subaru. We sold my car when we started the farm. We went down to one vehicle. We really, really downsized, and we downsized our lifestyle as well, because we were doing 2 well-paying jobs to no paying job and just farming. But there are programs for farmers for funding. It's not going to fix everything, but there is help out there if farmers do have a bad year. We got onto the self-employment benefit program the first year we started our farm. So we got a little paycheck for our first year. So that kind of helps squeeze us by. Still, we're in the hole. There is funding for new farmers. Again, not super great, but available. The best thing I would say for if you're starting a farm is to start slow. Because again, I could have started this farm and nobody could have wanted it and nobody could have liked it. We just got really, really lucky. We're in such a beautiful community. But also building diversity in your farm. So we grow over 20 different types of crops here. So if my cabbage doesn't do well, I don't have to freak out. Like there's not a monoculture here. There's a whole ecosystem. So if something doesn't do well, that's not my whole paycheck. Like if I was just a blueberry farmer or just a potato farmer and my crop didn't do well that year, I'd be shit out of luck. But sorry. But we build resiliency in our farm and our landscape that way. And a lot of succession planting too. And season extension technologies help us kind of start early and finish later. So it builds a little bit of financial resiliency in there, but also just doing what you can do. Like don't bite off more than you can chew. Because I could go get a greenhouse right now, but I don't know how that's going to work for us financially. It's a risk, right? Yeah. So we're kind of just going slow, and every penny that's made on the farm just goes back into the farm. So if you buy our produce, thank you.
Now you mentioned the positives of like government grants and things, and that's something that we've noticed too, that there is definitely, especially in New Brunswick, a great supportive community of agriculture. Yeah. However, there are two government departments that I've seen that are relatively at odds, and I don't know if you've run into them, is Minister of Agriculture, the Agriculture Ministry is amazing, yeah, but then public health can be a pain in the ass. Is that something that you've run into at all?
I have not dealt with public health very much. They just had the incident at the farm stand. I just took my jam out and I'll sell at the market. That's no problem. The Department of Agriculture has been phenomenal. I called their business growth officer before we had even purchased the farm and said, hey, I want to start a farm. I don't know anything. And he's like, okay, like call me back when you have a plan, kid. And they've just been so helpful and wonderful along the way. Like I can't say enough good things about the Department of Agriculture because we would not be as far as we are without their help and their support. I definitely think there needs to be more funding and more money, but they are on the right track. Like they just launched their new SCAP program, and that has a lot more funding, especially for renewable energy as well. Like you can get solar panels and stuff like that. So they see the need. It's just New Brunswick's always a little behind when it comes to agriculture. Like Quebec is like, I don't know if you've ever looked into some of the Quebec farms and their funding. They do phenomenal work. So we're almost there. We're getting there, but thankfully I haven't had to deal with public health too much.
What would more grants and more funding allow you to be able to do?
Grow more food, feed our community. And I think, unfortunately, the funding is usually about 50%. And I think there should be way more funding available for new entrant farmers because that's where we need farmers. Like there's no succession plan. Like you said, some farmers' kids don't want to take over the farm. So who's going to take over that turnkey operation? A new entrant farmer can't afford to buy that farm. I can't afford to buy a $1.5+ million farm, you know, like we have a little rinky dinky redneck farm and that works. But there definitely needs to be more funding, land accessibility, more funding for new farmers. It needs to be a higher percentage for farmers as well. I don't know what the answer is because I've been kind of racking my brain and maybe you have some suggestions, but I really do think there should be more publicly funded farms. Like, you know, it's maybe like a cooperative and like all that food's going back to the community or sold for a lower price. It's not just one person making a buck off of it, but food is a right. It's not a privilege. And there's so many people that deal with food insecurity in this province and across Canada and across the world. It doesn't have to be a problem. It doesn't.
Food insecurity has been something that has been brought up quite a few times, and it's interesting to talk about because everybody has a different perspective on it. And I find that food insecurity, especially to me, isn't just access to food, because many people have access to food. It's very rare that people don't have access to food. But for some people, it's gas station food. It is low quality food. And I would argue that even food from the grocery store now is low quality food because we've been blessed over the last couple of years to grow our own food or to meet people like yourselves who grow incredible produce. I had a grape for the first time last year. A real grape, because I'd never, always from the grocery store, they're just little seedless ones, and I was surprised that it tasted like cotton candy. Yeah. Because I had never had one before, and I was like, I've had candy, I love candy, but to have a food grown here in New Brunswick on a vine that was just like appalling to me because it was beautiful. Yeah. Have you had any of those experiences that you're just like, oh, this isn't what I expected at all? I grew a tomato and this doesn't taste like a grocery store tomato.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely the tomatoes. Like I said, a grocery store. I tried last year to grow tomatoes indoors, but the electricity bill was just a little too absurd, unfortunately. But we do ground cherry tomatoes. Have you ever had a ground cherry tomato before?
They're my favorite fruit.
They taste like little pineapples. Like they're just delicious. And then again, introducing people to that new food that they've never tried before is always exciting. But New Brunswick can grow a lot of things. We can grow peaches, we can grow cranberries, we can grow plums, grapes. Like we have a very rich, beautiful, fertile province. And again, it's just having a monoculture of that one crop. There's a higher higher risk of failure. And also fruit crops take a lot longer to produce. So we're hoping to add some perennials, hoping to add some fruit trees, but like sometimes we're not going to see a crop for 5 or 10 years with some of those, especially if we're starting it from seed or starting it from just like a younger seedling. So, but no, New Brunswick is beautiful. We can grow a whole bunch of food here.
Well, and it's nice too with our climate. We've talked about moving and trying to figure out something different because we do have a very short season.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate to have winter that kills off a lot of things we don't want.
Yeah.
But then during the summer, we have the time to be able to grow some of those beautiful things. We have producers like McCain's that grow potatoes, and other producers throughout the province that do an incredible job at producing a ton of food. But it's also nice to be able to see people who are able to grow smaller and produce a lot of variety and support their community, because I think it's so valuable now for our communities to have access to really high quality food. And unfortunately, I've had to often liken these large, like you mentioned, monoculture crops and these large farms as just agricultural grow ops. Like it's not really a farm anymore because you're just doing acres and acres. I think a lot of it's automated because they've got GPS on the tractors and it's just sprayed and they figured it out, and that's awesome. But like I said, I think there's going to be some issues over the next 5 to 10 years of people coming up with maladies that we are unaware of or have yet to be aware of that are caused by our food system over the last 15, 20 years.
100%. And I think again, this comes back to soil health and regenerative agriculture. We don't need to be spraying our crops and all of these intensive, harmful, it's raining quite hard, techniques. If you just have a farm that focuses on rotational grazing, building biodiversity, like whether that be hedgerows or having multiple different crops in one farm, you're building resiliency in there. There's less likely to be disease, less likely to be pests. Like we try and create habitat for wildlife here. Like I'd like to get a little bit more bird houses because you see the birds, you know, there's a role for every species here on the farm. Like as we're talking right now, the barn stalls are super mad at us right now because we're filming in their barn and their little nests, but they play an important part in our ecosystem. So if we could just go back to, instead of farming being just for money to produce a ton of food, and it went back to, okay, this is sustaining our community. This is for economic growth in our community. This is for the health of our people. Like our small farm, we're just starting out, but I'm going to be hiring students for years. I'm going to be hopefully hiring a full-time year-round employee. We're giving back to our community, and eventually we'll have fruit trees, we'll have everything else. So we'll have a very full farm, but it takes time to do that. And that's why it's so important that we hit the ground running now, especially when so many people are retiring and there's no succession plans. And we're losing farmland because there's more people, more sky rises, more Costco's, you know what I mean? It's just, sorry, I went on a tangent.
No, that's all right. Do you feel like cities are a problem? Should people be more spread out and be more supported by community-supported agriculture?
Yeah, and I mean, there is a place for urban farming. Urban farming is totally great. The Ecological Farmers Association of Ontario has a really great course on that. So if anybody wants to do urban farming within the cities, and I think cities are fine, but I think, again, this all goes back to capitalism. I don't know if this is the point of this.
Go for it. If you want to rant on capitalism, I will listen all day because I do it behind closed doors all the time.
Good. If you look at the map of Canada, though, the bulk majority, like there's definitely parts of Canada that really aren't habitable, but the bulk majority of us all live in the most southern part of Canada. And I definitely think it's so used to things being fast, easy, and cheap. I find a lot of our friends and family and customers who come visit us on the farm and they see the lifestyle, they hang out for a little bit, you're just instantly calmer being with nature. We're not meant to be working on a computer indoors. We're not meant to be, scanning groceries all day. We're meant to be outdoors. We're meant to be working for our food. We're meant to be foraging for our food, raising our food. Like, it's just not how we're supposed to live. And I think that's why so many people are so angry and hurt, just because they're not connected with nature again. Like, my mental health has improved tenfold since moving to a farm, and everyone around us feels how special it is to be on a farm and to be on your own farm,
We've talked about, if we could, to do a nonprofit farm, because I don't want to make money at this.
Yeah.
I just want to live this way, and it's been really difficult over the past few years to try to invest money into it because we don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so we've been trying to figure out the best ways to get there. And I lost my train of thought of where I was going, but
That's okay.
What was I trying to say? Oh, I lost it. I was probably going to rant on capitalism.
That's okay. I like
because When I first started with this, actually doing videos and social media, I was really keen on and really noticed whenever somebody else was doing it. And even still, if I notice on Facebook or online, I feel like I'm competing. And farming has been the first thing that I don't feel like I'm competing with somebody else, because I can only feed a small niche, small group of people. And it's nice to have that, because farmers like yourself, this isn't a competition. Like I mentioned earlier, we don't want to fight about how much I grow and how much you grow and, oh, we're our competition. We're not $1 billion organization. No. We are barely tens of thousands of dollars, if we're lucky. And so it's awesome that farmers can get together and there are resources to be able to share and be able to teach each other, because it's, like I said, it's the first thing that I've done that's not a competition. I don't need to be the best. I just want to grow as much as physically possible and as much as I can.
100%. And there are a lot of resources, and if you are looking to do not-for-profit, you can get even more funding for that. You can look into cooperatives, so you're not spending all of your money. The Depth of Field, sorry, shameless plug, I work for NFU. The Depth of Field series for the NFU highlights farmers and all the different types of farming and farm styles and their struggles. And they have some really beautifully done ones about cooperatives. The Young Agrarians website has a course, I think it's a pay what you can sliding scale course on how to start a cooperative. And with the DAF funding, you also get more, like I think sometimes you can get upwards of 100%, don't quote me on that, for cooperatives. So if you are looking to build a system like that, there are people who are interested in getting into cooperatives because they don't want to be the main farmer, because to run a whole farm by yourself is a lot, but to do it with a few friends, a few people, it just business partners is completely doable.
That's awesome that there's resources like that. And I find that that's hard for people. I have friends that have a relatively successful farm, but it's something that they're so busy farming that they don't have time to find those resources. Or even with the rebates for carbon taxes, they've been really frustrated with, because it's just paperwork. Then they have to hire somebody to do that paperwork. Is that something that you've noticed with the grants, that it's a lot of paperwork and friggin' with it? And
yeah, and like it's not accessible to everybody. Like I'm computer savvy, I'm young, I'm educated, I've been to college, you know, like I can figure these things out. But for, you know, an elderly person who doesn't use a computer, or someone who's not good at grant writing and writing these huge essays about your farm, or even uploading a picture to it, you know what I mean? That is a huge barrier. There are people who do grant writing, but again, it's at a cost. It creates a lot of barriers for people. It's not fair. It's not a just system. And again, we don't have the time. So this all gets done in the winter time, and then you don't hear back for a long time. And like we could start building a greenhouse right now, but when you apply for that greenhouse, you know, sometimes you're waiting over a year to hear back from them. And it's a silly, slow process, and they didn't think that one through.
It all comes back to capitalism.
It does.
Doesn't it?
It's all capitalism.
Ruined everything.
Computers, the aliens.
Lizard people.
The lizard people. Don't get me started on the lizard people, Ben.
Thank you for this. I appreciate having this conversation. We'll stop at lizard people. We can't go any further. They'll listen, they'll hear us.